Welcome everybody to another episode of Burn Your Boats. If you are frustrated, you're getting a feeling of like, I'm sitting on the sidelines. We have a new president now. Interest rates are going down. They're going up. They haven't really done much. You're confused. Should I invest? Should I wait a little bit longer? Well, you're not alone, right? Because we feel kind of the same way. David and I wanted to do an episode today where we kind of dive deep into the current state of the real estate market in general. We've got shifting market conditions. We've still got high interest rates. We're going to explore the challenges that are facing flippers, builders, buy and hold investors, the impacts of these high interest rates to kind of innovative strategies that builders are using to adapt. This episode is going to be packed with a ton of actionable insights. I repeat that, actionable insights. I want you to be able to take away something and go implement that right after you finish with this episode. You're going to learn why real estate professionals are still finding ways to invest despite market downturns, and understanding the market dynamics, the wage growth, and effective deal underwriting that's going to be able to help you succeed. So if you're navigating the real estate world right now and you do not want to miss this conversation, so tune into these strategies. We're going to give you great nuggets to take away from. And so without further delay, let's get this show on the road.
All right, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Burn Your Boats podcast. We are here in Florida and it is mid-January. And I don't know about you, Clark, but I am freezing my freaking ass off down here. And I don't like it. I don't own cold clothes. And so here I am. I'm like pulling old shirts out of the back of the closet and from the attic and whatnot. So, Clark, how are you handling this cold, wintry weather we're very unaccustomed to?
I'm flirting off the mothballs right now of any warm clothes that I have. I don't even think I own like a heavy jacket, and being able to walk outside right now is I just avoid it. Like I just quickly run in my car and then quickly run in. And I'll tell you, I used to live up in the Panhandle in Pensacola and Destin, and I keep seeing all my news feed of social media with they got 7 inches of snow in Pensacola, which is absolute bonkers. Like that just never happens. So I don't know how they're dealing with it right now. They probably stopped the town. I think they let kids off school, so they're not even in school, and it was like probably wasn't even any snow on the street.
You know what? I don't like it cold. I just don't like it. It's we get a little bit soft down here in Florida, but we're going to talk about something that's toughening us up a little bit today. We're going to talk about the current market conditions. There's a lot of people out there that are kind of confused, getting mixed signals from this or from that. And so I think this is as good a time as any to, pull back the kimono and let you guys in on conversations that we're having with our friends, our developer friends, what we're doing inside our own world, and what's working and what's not working in the market. So it's going to be a great episode. But before we start, we got a favor to ask, and it's the only favor that we will ever ask you to do. If you enjoy listening to us each week, it's important that we try and grow it, right? Because we get in here every week. It takes a lot of time to make videos and edit them and get them up and post them. And there's a fair bit of expense to all of that as well. And so if you enjoy this episode, there's one of two things you can do. Can you please subscribe? Subscribe to our podcast. It makes an incredible difference to the algorithms. And that's the only thing we'll ever ask you to do. Alternatively, could you go on our Burn Your Boats Wealth Instagram and like us in there and DM us with your contact details? We'd love to send you, special one-off webinar things that we do ourselves behind the scenes that have nothing to do with Burn Your Boats. And so if you could subscribe, or if you could look us up on Instagram and subscribe to us there, we would super appreciate it. Clark, what do you say about that?
And also too, if you just have questions, right? Like if you're going through, let's say we talk about something on this episode or one of the past episodes, and you're finding that similar struggle in your own path, your own journey, and you just say, hey, here's my situation. What would you guys do? Or do you have any recommendations or connections? we would be happy. We'll respond to you individually. We're not going to have some bot respond to you, we promise. And we'd love to be able to help you out in any way that we can, because sometimes all you need is that one connection or that one, mindset shift on the way that you're looking at a deal or an idea. And we just want to help you out. So please don't be bashful. Go on LinkedIn, Facebook. We're on all the different socials, Burn Your Boats Wealth, and just DM us, instant message us, whatever it's called on that platform, and we'll be happy to respond, very, very quickly.
Yeah, there's always something. When I used to listen to podcasts when I was getting started, particularly, I would always like, why don't they talk about, where they get the
Yeah.
money from? Like, oh yeah, I bought this deal, then I bought another one, then I it's like, but there's something you're missing. Where did you guys get the capital, or who did you
Right.
go to? There's always seems to be unanswered questions, when people outline, what they do or what they did, and it always seems to be that like little gap in the information. If you identify something, let's say you think we're talking too high level, or we're talking about something one day, you're like, guys, love that conversation, but I didn't understand this, or I wanted to know more about
Yeah.
that. Can you please let us know? A, we'll answer your question, but B, we might tackle that exact thing in a subsequent episode. So, look, without further ado, it is January 2025, and the market's hairy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The market is at as slow a pace, and I think that I speak for this. Obviously, nationwide would be a bit of an overstatement, but
Yeah.
certainly a lot of the country is experiencing a very, very rapid downshift in sales activity, in price appreciation. In fact, maybe in some markets, prices coming down a little bit. And we wanted to tackle this topic right head on. And how we've decided to do it is a little bit novel. We were sitting in here before the episode today, and I said, you know what, Clark, I'm going to write down approximately 15 thoughts that I'm going to have you answer, and I might answer a few along the way about the market. And so Clark doesn't know what the rest of this podcast episode is about. So everything you hear Clark saying, this is all going to be original content. You won't hear it anywhere else. So Clark, without further ado, I'm going to open with question one. Clark, why is the market tough right now?
Wow, that's a good open-ended question. The market, I think one of the challenges is that interest rates have continued to stay up. They haven't really dropped, and yet prices aren't really dropping, which you would think, because there's a lack of just transactions going in the market. So I think that interest rates changed everything in the middle of 2022 as they started to climb, and they really haven't come back down much. And then it's trickled down to all the different types of things, whether you want to buy your first house, whether you want to buy a rental property. It's very, very hard for the numbers to pencil right now. And when I say that, I mean for you to actually be able to put down, say, 20 or 25 or 30% and still have a property that gives you some sort of positive cash flow, if you're looking at it from an investment point of view. So I'm just going to give you a quick answer, David. I don't think that this is something that's super, super in depth. Maybe you look at it differently, but obviously having the interest rates still hover around where they're at right now, which is higher than what we're used to in the past. They're higher than what I've seen as I've been buying in my career. And I don't see them going down anytime necessarily soon. What about you?
All right. So you're right. Interest rates spiked 2022, but was historically low inventory. So we
Yeah.
all know that, right? And so it is taking real estate is glacial. A lot of people think like the stock market is instantaneous,
Yeah.
right? Something happens, and within 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, people are reacting to it. And the real estate market can take years to stop, slow down, and then change course. And that's what I feel has been happening. If you can, to use an analogy of a cargo ship, it takes a long time before that cargo ship, between the time the cargo ship turns off its engines and it actually, slows down. It takes a long time for that to happen. And I think over the last 2.5 years, that's what's been happening. And there was we had this blip in late 2024 where the bond yields started to come down a bit. They dropped below 4%, and then they dropped into the mid threes. And we saw an absolute avalanche of mortgage demand come back into the market in kind of middle of 2024. and it gave everyone this sense of a new dawn. Here we are, we got the soft landing. But then what happened? Bond yields started to increase pretty hectically, right into from summer right up into the new year, and up as far as an inauguration the other day. And that has pushed interest rates for your mom and pop buyer, not even your mom and pop, but that's just your first time buyer, to 7%, north of 7%. And that has also literally decimated investor demand, because investors are always a full percentage point interest rate above that. So most investors are, toying with, they're tipping on an 8% interest rate to buy a deal. And prices are still high. So something has to give. It's either prices or it's either interest rates. And so the market is tough because neither of those two things have moved until now. Until now. You know what? I spent a little bit of time noodling before this episode because I kind of do know these questions. And I'm seeing some pretty big price discounts. If you actually go, you say market wise, you can get onto the big, get onto the data, the big macro data, the micro data. But if you get down onto the house on house data, there's some big discounts happening out there right now. Some really big ones. I saw a house in California the other day, and this wasn't a $20 million house. It was like a $4 million house. And it was purchased, I got to say, in 2018 for 1.6 million. And they listed it at 5.6 million, after 6 years? It was pretty much the same looking house. And, they were 5.6 million, and they dropped the price in one go down to 4.6 million. Don't get me wrong, this person's still in the money. But what I am seeing is there is absolutely individual price drops happening now. But we got lots of questions, and we're going to get into the how and why. Clark, who is being impacted by these higher interest rates? Who specifically?
It's a good question, and I like this format where I don't know the questions, because it's like, just all right, let's get to it. Put me on the hot seat. Who's being impacted? Everyone is being impacted, but I think a better question is like, who is being impacted the most, right? Certainly, people at the lower end and middle end of the spectrum are being impacted more. As I've kind of gotten into developing a little bit and started to kind of dabble in some building. One of the things that I learned, David, is that at about the $1.75 to $2 million price point, people stop financing for houses. So like I'm in the process right now of trying to go through a build to sell about a $2 million price point house. And that won't be done for probably another 12 months, give or take, knock on wood, hopefully sooner. And we feel that the buyer is actually going to be a cash buyer, right? So if you're paying cash for something, well, then interest rates kind of aren't as big of a deal versus someone that's like on the line of being able to get approved or not approved. And then let's say that the points on the loan or the interest rate goes up by like 25 basis points, right? And it knocks them out of being approved, and they can't buy the house anymore. And we see it all the time with my girlfriend selling new construction, where it's so close on a $300,000, let's say a first time home buyer type house. And if anything is out of line, if the insurance is a little bit higher than they thought it was going to be, or if the, something in their financial background meant that, oh, no, they couldn't get that better rate, and then it knocks them out and they're not approved. So I definitely think that the people that are out there buying the lower, the $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 houses are being impacted the most. And then if you want to bring into account inflation, that's certainly eroding it, because inflation is going to be a bigger percentage of their overall, income that they have to be able to spend. So I would say the lower tier and kind of the middle tier are impacted the most versus maybe the upper tier. They're out there buying the 7-figure type houses. What about you?
I'm going to go with your first answer. I'm going to say everybody. I think it's massively impacting the first time buyer, to your point. I think it's massively impacting your mom and pop investor, that are the people who are buying, or they want to buy one, maybe two houses a year during their investing years, and they just can't make these things pencil. whatsoever, unless there's some kind of rate buy down or other gimmick that's put out there. But there's very few people who want to give a hard discount. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Nobody wants to discount their homes in the builder world. So I think the builders are being impacted. I think the mom and pop investors being impacted. We're going to talk in a minute about the commercial world is being massively impacted. Honestly, quite honestly, right across the board, everybody who touches real estate is massively impacted right now. My next question, Clark, is who is it not impacting? I think you've already answered the question, because you need to listen to these questions. Only answer the actual question. Don't ask the non-question. So I said, who is it impacting? Who is it not impacting? That's my next question.
David, I'm not very good at coloring in between the lines. I'm not very good at that. So, yeah, I mean, so I'll kind of piggyback on. I think that the folks that are paying cash for things, and that's usually going to be someone that's going to be an upper tier on the wealth scale. And but other than that, I still even to that point, like it's still impacting them in some way. It impacts everyone. Like if you're out buying a $20 million apartment complex, like you may be super wealthy, but it's still impacting you because you're probably not going to pay $20 million cash for that. You're going to borrow some money somewhere. So I really think that it's going to impact everyone. If you're out there buying for yourself a house to move into and you're paying cash, then it's not impacting you. And
Ding, 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 ding.
that's the
That's the
only
right
one I can
answer.
think of is the personal house, but the investment side it's
Ding,
still
ding,
going to
ding,
impact
ding,
you.
ding. Again, you got it right. That was the first. Take yes for an answer.
It
You
only
got
took
it
me 3
right.
minutes to get there.
Yeah. That's who it's not impacting. I'm looking at my market. We still have about 30% of our sales here in the Florida market are cash buyers.
Yeah.
And these are people who are moving to Florida, or they're just moving from one house to the other, or one way or the other, they're cash buyers and they're not impacted, right? They don't care. They don't care. They're, if anything, they've never had more, optionality.
Yep.
We're going to get into a few other topics in a minute, but they really have some great choices out there
Yeah.
at the moment. And, they have the opportunity right now to buy the absolute cream of the crop. Whereas like a year or two ago, they were
Yeah.
just competing with all the other flippers and rehabbers and, wholesalers and institutional buyers and everyone else. Well, they're all gone, are, mostly gone. So if you are buying at the retail end, that's been the nice end of the single family home market, and you're buying with cash, you are not impacted by this. If anything, the impact
It's
is
helping you.
very positive for you.
Yep.
So if you are thinking about buying your own personal home and you have the money to do so, and that this is the time to start thinking about buying that home, certainly in the first to second half of 2025. All right, let's move on, because there's lots of questions and we'll probably get to the ins and outs of most of the market by the time we're done. All right. What about the commercial market? I know, Clark, that you are in a commercial mastermind group. So you're in there with $100 million guys having
Yep.
conversations. And I know that you're trying to buy a multifamily right now, 100 plus unit multifamily. What about the commercial market? It's well trodden in other podcasts, so we're not going to spend an
All right.
hour on it. But these commercial guys, it's well known that the commercial market, now the commercial market can break down into lots of things. Specifically, we're talking about the multifamily market. So what is happening in the multifamily market as these interest rates have gone back up again?
Yeah.
They were all looking for a soft landing. They were all kicking the can down the road. The banks are going to start pulling the plug on these extensions. What's going on in the commercial market?
So I've got two ways to look at this. So in one of the groups that you mentioned, I'm in, there's a lot of guys in the Midwest, right? And so those are going to be in the slightly higher cap rate markets, usually probably in the 6.5 to maybe 7.5 cap rate. And I still see them being able to somewhat get bank loans from small local banks, where they've built relationships over the years to be able to get some movement, right? It's not just a complete standstill where there's no movement. And I am seeing some properties trade through the group, but they are in the, let's say at the sub 80 to or 75 to 100K per door, just to give you a context, on like, let's say a 20 unit, right? That's going to trade for, 1.5 to $2 million, right? I'm still seeing a little bit of trading in that. It's not just complete crickets. We don't just sit around on this group and nobody's doing anything. So there is some sort of movement. And now talking about our market in Florida, where it's probably a little bit more or it's a little bit more competitive. The cap rates are a little bit lower. It makes it very, very tough. I'm seeing less trading in that market for sure. Sellers are still, the vacancy is still low, right? So there's not a tremendous amount of distressed debt as of yet. Now, obviously, the interest rates have gone up. The people that bought 2 or 3 years ago, that's a whole different story, David, because they are still trying to hold on to that deal and not let it go by getting extensions and things like that. We haven't seen a lot of that, just blood on the street with just people that are letting stuff go back to the bank, but that could be coming in the future. We kind of keep waiting. But for now, I'm seeing low transactions in kind of our market, and I'm assuming it's gonna be similar in the Phoenixes, the Dallases, markets like that on the larger multifamily side. In the Midwest, I'm seeing a little bit more transacting. What about you?
Yeah, if you're sitting in a syndication that owns multifamily right now and you're expecting an exit in 2024, I think it's a good to give your sponsor a little bit of a breathing room because he's getting it on
Yeah,
all fronts. If you're part of a fund that owns multifamily and they were doing a value add, interest rates are absolutely a mortal blow to their exit strategy. And so, everybody is, they, extend and pretend is something that we've all heard in the commercial world. The banks learned a lot in 2008 and 2009, Clark, and they're not in the business of taking real estate back. But believe me, as soon as buyers show back up in the multifamily space, as soon as interest rates come down, ironically, so right now the banks don't want these things back
right.
because the banks can't sell them.
Yeah,
But as soon as interest rates go down, I feel then we're going to see a bloodbath in the commercial world because it's at that moment the banks are going to come in and say, we're calling in that loan.
yeah,
That extended loan, the one that we extended last year and the year before, we think we can sell that asset now. You either sell it, we're going to give you 90 days to sell it, or we're taking it back. So
yeah.
until interest rates actually start to come down, I think you're going to see just this continued freezing of the commercial multifamily world, unless you are in a position to come in and do a deal in this higher interest rate environment. But to your point, we're not seeing sellers being even in a position to sell where the numbers work because the
Yeah.
numbers are so upside down that they would really want to sell these things at about a 30 to 40% discount from what their expectations were and what their exit strategy was. And they will burn all their profit, all
Yeah.
their investors' capital, and then some of the bank's money as well. And so nobody wants that. So, you know, the whole industry is kicking down the road on that. So, Clark, what about flippers? What's going on with flippers right now? And then we're going to talk about builders. So talk to me about flippers. How are they responding to and how are they operating in higher interest rate environment?
Well, I think that flippers are definitely being more conservative with their numbers in terms of the everything. As if you're a flipper, everything starts from one number, and that number is what is it going to sell for once you fix it up and make it pretty, right? And so if you have that number, and then you work backwards, right? You work backwards. You subtract out what you think the renovation is going to be. You subtract out what you want for your profit, your holding costs, and then that ultimately leads you to what your offer price is going to be. I think that a lot of flippers are definitely being very conservative right now with their ending sale price, which means that it's going to drop their offer some. It's hard to say because David, you and I both get wholesale deals all the time. Which, if you don't know what a wholesale deal is, it's just an off-market deal. Someone has locked up a deal that says, "Hey, Mr. Smith, I'm going to buy it from you for 100 grand," and then they send out an email blast and they try and add their profit on that for 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever it is, right? But they don't actually own it and they never plan to own it. So I think flippers are being more conservative, which means I think there's less cash transactions going right now. I think that there's more wholesale deals that are dying on the vine and they're just giving it back to the seller and saying, hey, they'll make up an excuse, the inspection item, this or that, why it didn't sell. And they just give it back to the seller. So I think right now there's still flip activity, because if there's a good deal, it still will go in a couple days through the wholesale market. But I think on the whole, there's more deals being given back to the sellers, and they're not selling if they're not in like a good location, or there's not a lot of huge upside. But that's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm talking to wholesalers a lot with, and some flippers. What are you seeing, David, on your side?
If you hear that the market is dropping in any one market or the other, right, know this, that it was priced wrong in the first place. It's not that the market is falling
Yeah.
apart. What it is that people who were, looking at after renovation values, what they thought they could sell it for a year ago, and do cut corners on their renovation. And they thought that the buyer demand would always be there. And here they are now. They list their home on the market in November 2024. And here they are in January. And, it doesn't look any prettier for them. Flippers who were recklessly buying on busy streets or cutting corners on their renovation, and didn't know their numbers, are getting hosed right now.
Yep.
And most of them will either sell at a loss. Most flippers won't do that, ironically enough. Most flippers will try and refinance the property and put a tenant in it and just put it into their own portfolio. That's
Yep.
what flippers do when their deal doesn't work out. They refinance out of their hard money, and they hold it as a buy and hold. And time, as we all know, solves all problems.
It does.
So the flippers who are getting deals done right now are the flippers who are laser focused on quality. They're laser focused on quality streets, quality homes, and then they provide an absolutely flawless product to their buyers. And those buyers are the cash buyers we just talked about. Those cash buyers are going to come in, and they're going to see the quality of this. And so that's one side of the flipper market. So they are still finding great success, deliver an exceptional quality. And I mean, go back out to the landscaping, the curb appeal, the fencing, no excuses to walk out of this house, right? This is the house you want to buy, right? They're having success, and they're priced right. They're priced in the middle of the pack, and they're delivering this product. They're going to still sell even in today's market, 2 to 3 days. And the other side of the market is the people who are buying at such a massive discount, and they're doing nothing whatsoever. They're literally just buying it and are putting it out there. Some people call this a wholesale product. It's not fancy. It's very little renovations done, but there's a lot of, DIY buyers out there who want to they'll buy the cheaper house and they'll move right in, and they'll do, they slowly do the DIY work themselves. And so those houses are selling. So if you're smart enough to go out and buy a wholesaler deal or a foreclosure deal right now, don't do any renovations. Just what your added value is, you're giving a great price to the market. You'll still sell it in 2-3 days. If houses in that market are selling for 400, and you put a property out there for 305, that's going to sell. Yeah, and it doesn't need to be nice. So that's where I'm seeing flippers do well. The flippers who are getting caught out are the flippers who are kind of halfway between what I've just described. Yeah. Top of the market pricing with middle of the market renovations. You're going to get caught out. Clark, we're going to move on. And I know this one's close to your heart. What about builders? What are builders experiencing right now with these super high interest rates? And that goes for their build cost, because their cost of building has gone up in terms of their builder finance. And then when they come to sell the home, builders usually are at the very top of the market in terms of the price point. So they're competing in that world. Clark, I know you've got a couple of new builds that just completed. Why don't you walk us through your world?
So there's a couple things to consider on the build side. One of the challenges is that you don't really, it's hard to see until you peel back the layers, or you just talk to someone, is that especially early on. So I'm definitely earlier on in my building career, or on developing career. What I've seen is that we've probably spent an additional 3-4 months, maybe that's 10, 15, 20% additional, just in dealing with the municipalities, right? So the city, through permitting, through getting comments back, then it takes a long time. Then you go to the bottom of the pile, then there's not a good contact. So we've had a tremendous amount of frustration with dealing with permitting issues, with dealing with getting something told to you saying this is approved, and then we go and we do that thing on the building, and then they come back and like, yeah, we know we approved it, but we're not going to approve it for XYZ reason. And that's very, very frustrating. I've gone through that, and I know I've got multiple friends that are building and they're going through the same thing. So that's a big challenge that's taking longer. And when it takes longer, David, it costs more money on your holding costs. And then you start getting closer to your balloon payments. Most construction loans are either going to be 12, 18, or 24 months. And it gets hairy when you get close to the end of your construction loan and you still haven't sold it yet, right? We definitely are seeing properties sit on the market longer, especially in our market. We're seeing a lot of 700 to say $1 million properties that are just sitting and they're not selling. And so that price point has been a bit of a challenge. And the one that I have right now, we put it out, I think at 800,000 or 850. We started at 850. And to your point, David, about the flipper that couldn't sell it is refinancing it. We're in the process right now of trying to refinance it so we can keep it and basically break even with a tenant in place. And we're doing our best. We're like holding on. We're peeking over the fence saying, please, can we get this refinanced where it works with the interest rate to where our mortgage can get covered by the tenant? We are going to make $0 every single month. And I'm okay with that because it's a nice asset. And I'm more than willing to bring it into the next few years and then figure out what to do with it there. But I think that if you are not a huge builder, if you're not the DR Hortons of the world, where you're able to buy everything down to where you're getting a 4% interest rate and you're more of like a smaller builder that doesn't have that in the budget, you're hurting right now.
All righty. That's good. So I agree with you. I just had a conversation with my builder developer Fred yesterday. Yep, they are value engineering a slightly cheaper property going forward. Yeah. That's what they're doing. They're kind of making it smaller, and they're delivering a smaller 3.2, and they're trying to get it under 300 grand. Yeah. Builders are going to respond to this unaffordability by building smaller homes. And, another builder friend of mine the other day, who we're going to have on a podcast, he's done about 3,000, 4,000 bills. And what they're doing right now, they're packaging up a lot of what they were going to sell to mom and pop investors. They're packaging them up and then offering them as owner finance in blocks of 10 to investors. So the builders are getting innovative about how to dispo their current inventory. But I can tell you this: the builders don't want to stop building because they know the back end of this conversation is about what next. So the builders can see the future, and none of them want to wind down operations. Yep. That are continuing to build. Their margins are down from circa 15 to 18%. The builders out there building right now at margins of 6%, but they've got overheads inside of that, and so the builder basically delivering inventory right now at zero profit or close to it. So the builders are kind of survive till 25. I don't have the what is it till 26. So the builders are just trying to get to 26 right now from what I'm hearing, and I've been speaking to some pretty big builders in the last 24 hours. Clark, what about the buy and hold investor? We'll make these answers quick, but the buy and hold investor, that's my clients. In fact, I can take that one. They're out. They're gone. Unless they're gone from the regular market. The only space now is if a developer is giving an incentive. So the only really thing that the buy and hold investors that I can see buying, and this is the kind of mom and pop buy and hold investor, they're pretty much out there exclusively buying from builders, and those builders can give incentives because your Uncle Buck on 123 Main Street can't do a buy down your rate on. He's selling his house he lived in for 20 years. He's not buying anybody's rate down, or he's not doing any sophisticated incentive. All he can do is reduce the price of his house. And so in many cases, if Uncle Buck doesn't get the price he wants, he's just got to take it off the market and say, I'll try again next year, right? But the buy and hold investors, by and large, from what I would call the real market, they're gone unless they can do something about it. We're going to talk about that. But your standard W-2 buy and hold mom and pop investor who buys 1-2 houses a year and continues to do so, I don't see them. They're not there. And the evidence is there from talking to my builder friends. The evidence is there talking to my other friends that are in the turnkey business. the buyers are gone unless there's massive incentives. And guess what? With these higher interest rates, with bond yields now, touching 5%, the builders can't really buy down the rates anymore. They could buy the rates when the bond yields were at 3.5%, like 6 months ago. But with bond yields up at 5%, the builders just they it would cost them $40,000 to buy down that rate to something that's going to, impact, is going to move the needle. So buying interest rates down is going to become less and less a feature. And I've just yesterday I was told from a builder, a big builder, it's not working anymore, the buying down rates thing. So buy and hold investors, by and large, are out on the regular retail world. We're going to talk about how those people can maybe operate in 2025 in a minute. But so, Clark, I've got a question for you. Why do real estate professionals, people that we knock about with, they're still buying no matter what? Why are they still buying? Are they some kind of aliens? Are they like dumbasses who don't know what they're doing? Why? You don't know. You don't know this question. You don't know these questions are coming. But why did you buy recently? Why did I buy recently? I bought a property 20 days ago. Why did I do it?
It could be a dumbass alien. You never know. Just, there's obviously other reasons that you hear. You hear people say, well, he bought it because he needed a tax. He bought it for a tax reason, right? There's definitely a new build that we just finished that we're trying to refinance right now. We're going to do a cost segregation study on it, and we should be able to get somewhere in the probably $300,000 to $350,000 of bonus depreciation, David, that we're going to be able to take that off of our top line taxes, right? And so our taxable income will then decrease by about 300 to 350,000. Well, that's a huge deal, right? That's a lot of money. So at the end of the day, if I can hold something that kind of breaks even, and I can take potentially a $200,000 or $300,000 off my income, I may not, my tax liability is going to be so much less, right? And that's something that is certainly a little bit more sophisticated, but it's not that much more sophisticated, to be quite frank. It's actually fairly simple. And so that's a big reason why buying that. But then the other reason, David, is again, like if you can buy something that breaks even, and we've talked about this all the time, right? Is that guess what? In 10 years, you're going to be looking back at that and say, God, thank the Lord that I bought that property in 2025 when the prices were so low, right? Now we don't think they're low, right? Just like if we went back to 2014, right? When prices were starting to move up from the 2009, 2010 levels. And it's like, oh God, now prices are getting more expensive. We laugh. Go look at a property bought in 2014. And anyone that bought a rental property or an investment property or a property that they lived in and then moved out of, they've got so much equity in it. Their mortgage payment's so low versus what a renter is going to pay today. So you can do it the sophisticated way, right? Which is cost segregation, things like that. But also too, over time, real estate just goes up. It may dip, go up, down, sideways for a little bit, but over, let's say, a 5 or 10 year period, time is always going to be on your side. And you should always be buying real estate in every market. It's that simple.
So you can sell the property and make $350,000 profit on which you would pay tax, or you can hold the property and offset $350,000 worth of tax.
Exactly.
I got to let that one sit there for
Yeah.
most people. Go find out about bonus depreciation, because that is why every day we hear our friends buying this and buying that. Don't cash flow, doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, I'm just going to bonus depreciate it. Go talk to your accountant about it. Go learn about it, because you don't have to sell things to make a massive profit. And guess what? You can make that profit in day one. And the word on the street is with the inauguration of the new president that it's likely 100% bonus depreciation is going to reemerge. And that is why professionals continue to buy real estate. It's why wealthy people buy real estate no matter what. You might say, oh, this isn't cash flowing. You're missing the point entirely. Yeah. You're missing the point entirely if you think it's just about cash flow. We got to keep on going.
David, go back to episode 40. We interviewed Marcus Krigler, and we talked solely about bonus depreciation. So we won't talk about it anymore on this episode. Go back and listen to episode 40 if that hits and strikes a nerve.
All right. So now we're going to talk about the takeaway for the listener. What is the actionable items that we can deliver in the start of 2025. How do you, the listener, navigate the downturn? Because the downturn, you might see the stock market is doing this, and the technology world is doing that. There is a major recession on in real estate. We are 2.5 years into a recession of the real estate and all of the ancillary. If you're a realtor right now, you're having a recession, right? Just simple as that. If you're a mortgage broker right now, you are in the middle of a big old recession. Now we're going to talk about how you, the listener, can take away actionable items about how to play this downturn. All right, Clark, you don't know the questions. So how do we navigate? Okay, Clark, where are the deals? Where are they?
That's a good question. The deals are certainly going to be, I mean, kind of everywhere, right? Like you can look on the MLS, you can look at wholesale deals, but here's the thing: is that it's not free, right? You're not going to get on the MLS and go on Zillow and have some great deal just smack you in the face, and it's going to say, "Guys, this is a great deal. You're getting it for X below what it's actually worth." You have to actually do some work. And I know that sucks, but it's like anything in life, is that anything that's worth doing, you have to actually put in some sweat equity. And by that, what I mean is that it's going to be easier to identify deals, David, that, either they've been sitting on the market a long time, they don't present themselves well, they have bad pictures, they've got smelly looking furniture, and whatever the case may be. We know, everyone listening knows what that house is, right? You can smell that house from a mile away. The thing is that you have to pick up the phone, you have to talk to the wholesaler, you have to talk to the real estate agent, you have to talk to whoever it is, and you have to offer less. You have to offer exactly what you think that you need to buy it for. And if you need help learning how to structure an offer, again, like David said in the beginning, reach out to us, DM us, say, "Hey, Clark, I like your idea about picking up the phone, but I don't know what to offer." In 10 minutes, we can help you to be able to feel more confident about making offers, but you have to do some work. There's nothing that's going to just slap you in the face and say, "Here's $100,000 worth of equity. All you have to do is just buy it at list price." So I'm going to leave it at that, David, because you're going to have to do some work, but there are deals out there. What about you?
Okay. So in order to understand where the deals are, you first, to Clark's point, you first have to understand what is a deal. And you only know what is a deal if you know how to underwrite real estate. Lesson number one, you want to get some equity. So just imagine for a minute that you want to buy it like a fix and flip person. That's how you get a deal. So underwrite your deals on a fix and flip underwriting tool. That's lesson one. Before you open Zillow or before you go anywhere, discuss real estate with anybody, learn how to underwrite a fix and flip deal. And you will see what your profit would have been if you flipped it. Well, that just means how much equity you would have if you do this deal. So we said, where are the deals? First and foremost, learn how to underwrite a deal. We might do an episode on that. Yep. Because you can't do anything. You can't do anything at all. You cannot move forward. You know nothing. You're fighting with two hands behind your back, blindfold on, and no fighting skills whatsoever if you do not know how to underwrite a deal. So that's number one. Now, where are the deals? Clark said, go on the MLS and look for smelliness. Go look for it. We call it eau de flipper. That's what word we use. Go look for that house with the awful landscaping, the pink curtains, the shitty back gardens, particularly the ones that have a roof, that need the roof done. That's the easiest way to find a deal. Is so many sellers sell because they don't want to fork out 20 grand for a roof. So go find houses that need new roofs. That's a really good place to start, because that precludes 90% of buyers cannot buy a house because the mortgage companies will not originate a mortgage on a house that needs a new roof. So the seller wants to sell the house without putting the roof on, but the mortgage company won't give the loan to the person who wants to buy it at that price because it's not a new roof. And so that right there is a great place to go looking. If you're going to go looking on the MLS, look for smelly houses. But even in some cases, just look for grandma's house. It's in the industry, we call it grandma nice house. It's clean. Grandma takes care of it, but you've got an old AC and an old roof. Great place to go and negotiate. Find out what wholesalers are. Find them in your market. Get on their mailing lists and be quick. When they send deals to your inbox, know your buy box, know where you are, and be quick to underwrite this thing and be quick to pick up the phone and give them a call, right? Learn how to buy into foreclosure auctions. Foreclosure auctions, there's about a third as many foreclosures right now as there is in a normal market. And I bought hundreds of foreclosures when there was 300% more. So buying into foreclosure markets is hard freaking work. Not buying because you get a good discount if you can do it, but you don't know which ones are going to sell. So you've got to underwrite them all, and you got to do the homework on them all, and you got to have your full research and due diligence done on every house because you own it that day and you haven't seen it. So go buy in the foreclosure markets, learn how to interact with wholesalers, go to the regular market, look for price discounts, go look for houses that have older roofs and older ACs. Great place to find deals. Learn how to underwrite and then make wild offers. Make wild offers because, that's what the wholesalers are doing. They have the balls to make the offer. You just need the balls to make the offer, but you need to know what that offer is.
I got to jump in on that. Number one, I disagree on the foreclosure auction thing. I think there's enough deals out there. You can get bit. David has been buying foreclosures in the auction for a long time, and it's a very sophisticated process, and you can really get screwed if you don't know what you're doing. So if you're just kind of half-assing this, then please don't go buy in the foreclosure auction. In my opinion, there's too many deals out there on the MLS and the wholesale that you're going to have more risk diluted down because you can get title policy. You've got a little bit of time to close. You don't have to come up with the cash right away. You've got a little bit of time. The second thing is when you're making an offer, I want you to ask yourself one question. Am I embarrassed to make this offer? Okay. So if you make the offer to the wholesaler, the realtor, whoever it is, if your answer to your question is, I'm not embarrassed to make this offer, it's too high. That's an easy way to look at it and say, oh wait, I'm embarrassed. They're asking $450 for this and I'm offering $379. I'm kind of embarrassed. That's perfectly where you need to be.
Yeah, just a real quick tip. Don't bring your realtor in to make lowball offers all over town. They won't do it for you.
Yep.
What you got to do is you got to connect to the seller's realtor directly, where you do not have a realtor representing you. Because if you say to your realtor, I want you to go around town making 30% below market offers, your realtor's like, I'm not going to do that to my reputation.
Yeah.
All right. So I just want to be aware of that. Don't use a realtor to do what Clark just said.
Yeah.
Call directly the realtors yourself. That's a big one. Clark, how do we get out of this? When, people are talking, oh, there's green shoots and there's this, that, and the other, and I'm going to get into this, but how do we get out of this? When does this change?
Well, that's the $1,000,000 question is when does this change? How do we get out of it? I think it's a mindset thing too. Like, again, I'm going to go back to the property. I just spent about an hour and a half underwriting our deal that we built. That's about a $1.6 million asset, right? We are going to get out of it by refinancing it and basically cash flowing, maybe even a little bit negative. I'm okay with that. I've accepted that because at the end of the day, I see the bigger picture that it's going to eventually go up over time and be a very valuable asset. So I've accepted the fact that my little mini businesses that I own that are rental properties are not going to be excelling in 2025, right? In 2021, I looked like a genius. 2022, genius, right? Renters coming out of your ears, rents are going up every year. Well, that's not happening right now. But I'm okay with that because I understand that real estate is very cyclical, okay? And you're going to have some good days and you're going to have some bad days. I understand that this is going to be a slower year there's not going to be any rent growth. I'm not expecting that. I'm renewing all of my tenants, David, at exactly what they had it. So if they're cool paying what they paid last year, I'm like, thank you very much. Send them a steak dinner and move on with my day. So I'm not going after rent increases and anything. If they start to push back, and they say, hey, I saw this place down the street for less, I may even drop my rent to keep them there because right now I'd rather not have a turnover where it sit vacant for 2 or 3 months. I've got multiple properties right now, David, that are sitting vacant for 2 or 3 months. And it is a kick to the every single day when it's not being rented and it doesn't feel good. So I'm quick to drop my rental prices. I'm not going to be greedy. If the market tells me it's not worth what it's worth, then I drop the price, make sure my pictures are good, make sure it's presented well. And I hug my tenants. I thank my tenants. I send them Christmas gifts. How do you get out of this, David?
Okay. How do you get out of it? Two things are going to happen here. Well, actually three. Number one, it's a stalemate. And this stalemate continues where interest rates remain high, prices remain high, and there's maybe 10% of the market willing to drop their prices, but by and large, the market stays at very, very low activity. And so that's kind of scenario one. Scenario two is that prices genuinely start dropping, right? Um, I don't see that. The reason being is that there's too many people who owe nothing or have 3% interest rates on their loans, and there's too much equity in their houses. You're not going to see a catastrophic price drop um, in activity. So you might see price drops in the houses that make their way onto the market, but you're not going within that price drop data, know that that's going to be a very, very small part of the market because most people are not distressed at all. And so if you need to sell right now and you go out onto the market with prices high and rates high, you're going to see some price drops. The point being is, if you're out there and you have to sell, drop your price, get it sold. I don't see interest rates dramatically changing in 2025. And in our last episode, my last episode that we put out there, I discussed why. And so I don't think either the Fed, I think that we might see definitely some softer rates by the end of the year. But unless we dramatically rein in government spending, I think I think the treasuries are going to stay somewhat where they are. Maybe they'll drop a little bit. So I don't think rates are going to come to this to save us. And I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of people that are desperate to sell that's going to bring prices down dramatically. So I don't, like, as a whole industry, I don't see prices dropping dramatically, but I do see prices dropping within the houses that are on the market. And if you need to sell, I see prices dropping maybe 5 or 10% in that. Maybe this is going to be pocket by pocket and market by market, but I've just told you the negative side, why I think prices maybe should drop. But here's where prices are going to be, in my view, here's what buttressing up against prices is: there is dramatic amount of wage growth. Clark, what keeps prices, when people say, oh, prices are high and interest rates are high, wages can also come to the rescue. So we think, okay, well, either rates have to come down or prices have to come down. But hold on, there's one other force, and that's wage growth. And wage growth is galloping forward. And so the longer we stay in this kind of fairly stagnant market, wage growth is coming on behind us to actually stabilize these prices. Clark, you have any information, or you have any discussion, you have any part of you wants to talk about or has information on wage growth coming in to offset these prices and interest rate rises?
I wish there was a black and white answer, and it's never freaking black and white, David. There's always some gray. It kind of depends, right? So if you look at wage growth as a whole, yes, wage growth has certainly gone up. At the start of the pandemic, wage growth went up like 8%, right? Which is bonkers. 2021, 2022, it dropped down to about 5%. And then in the latest data we've had, it's at about 4% wage growth, which is still a huge growth in terms of as a whole. However, right, where is that wage growth, right? Is it equal amongst if you work at McDonald's or you own the McDonald's company, right? And it's definitely gone up much, much higher on the upper tier. So to give you some context, is there's been like a 3% wage growth basically since COVID for middle wage workers in like the 40 to 60 percentile. The lower wage workers, it did go up. It went up about 13%. But from the higher wage or in the 90 percentile, it went up 46%. So there's definitely some differences depending on how much, which class you're in, as to how that impacts on your ability, to your buying power. What have you seen on your side?
No, that's exactly right. I think that's the thing that you don't hear a lot of people talking about is wage growth at the the professional class and above,
Yeah.
if you will, or the investor class. And it's at the 30%. It's bonkers amount of extra. It's, go to Las Vegas, go to New York, go to Miami, and just see the money around.
Yeah.
It's bonkers, right? So you can think the big macro wage growth, but I'm telling you, in these affluent areas, they're not these house prices are not coming down anytime soon. It's one thing to talk about rural, I'll choose Kentucky. It's one thing to talk about that, and it's another thing to talk about a high value, dense urban location
Yeah.
where in those locations, wage growth is bonkers, bonkers. And so if you're looking for a house price falling apart in those neighborhoods, I'm afraid you're out of luck. High prices, yep. High interest rates, yep. But the wages are coming up behind it to buttress those prices. So I think wage growth is the thing that a lot of people are not factoring in, and that is what the sellers are waiting for. That's what the builders are waiting for, and that's what the market overall is waiting for. If you're not going to get the price drops, if you're not going to get the lower interest rates, they're just waiting for wages to get to the point where people can afford these houses. The final one, and we're going to wrap up here, is a huge amount of people just don't understand what buyer demand is out there. So, last year, prices of treasuries dropped into the mid threes, and literally a million people applied for a mortgage. Bonkers, bonkers. There is bonkers demand out there from millennials and Gen Z buyers, right? There are millions. I heard numbers, right, that it's somewhere around 5 to 6 million people, right, million buyers, right, would be eligible to purchase a home if interest rates drop by 1%.
Wow.
So imagine interest rates drop from 7 to 6%. That would bring 5 million more buyers to the table. Imagine rates drop by 2%. That would bring 10 plus million buyers. There are millions and millions of home buyers sitting on the sideline, or wannabe home buyers sitting on the sidelines wanting to buy, but they're continuing to rent because it makes more sense to rent.
Yeah.
But if we have any drop in rates at all, or indeed if we have any drop in prices, there are 10 to 15 million buyers sitting on the sidelines if you take full affordability into it. But let's just say there are 5 million buyers that are ready to go. They just need either a better price, they need a better rate, or they need a higher wage. One of those three things is going to happen in the next year. And those buyers are going to come into the market. And for the people sitting on the sidelines saying, I'm waiting for overall prices to come down, I think they might be waiting. But that's not to say there's not an acute sense of gloom in the market right now. So if you are looking for a deal, in my opinion, and I'm looking back through the last several years since before COVID, I haven't seen an opportunity to buy a deal as good right now as I have seen in 4 to 5 years. So long as you know how to underwrite it, so long as you know how to go buy it, so long as you know how to go make an offer on it. So that's it. That's where I think that's our market wrap up for the week. We're at 58 minutes. That's 9 minutes longer we want it to be, Clark. So again, if you to Clark's point earlier on, if you want me to tell you how to buy in a foreclosure market, DM me. Right, go to
Yeah.
Burn Your Boats Wealth and just type in the word foreclosure. Right, DM us, and I will reach out to you, and I will do a little webinar for anybody who wants to jump in, and I will tell you step by step how to buy in the foreclosure markets in your county. Right, it's an invaluable tool, but you have to know how to do it. So I'm happy to do a small in-house webinar, but you're going to have to reach out to us. You're going to have to subscribe. You're going to have to reach out to us, and I will show you that for free. All right. So, Clark, do you have anything to add to this quick Q&A today? I hope we didn't grill you too much.
No, I love it. We need to do more of this. My posting or ending thoughts, concluding thoughts are: get off the sideline. Okay, this feels a little bit like there's a lot of negative energy in the media with real estate. When was crypto bottoming out? Like, was it a year ago? Or I'm not a crypto guy. Whenever it was, where it was at like 30,000 or whatever it was, right? And everyone's saying you're an idiot for buying crypto, right? And now, if you would have, when everyone's saying don't buy it, if you would have just bought some crypto and now it's at 100,000 or whatever crazy number it's at, right? I feel like we're kind of in a similar bubble right now. Real estate will always work out if you hold it out long enough. Go out and make offers. We will send you, we have a calculator we can send you. Just DM us and say calculator, and we'll send you just a quick and easy calculator to be able to make offers. The only thing stopping you from being successful is yourself. So sitting on the sidelines, I promise you, you won't get ahead by sitting on the sidelines. And educating yourself and listening to podcasts is great. Okay. Taking action is better. I'll leave it at that, David.
Couldn't have said it any better. Yeah. My biggest regret in my whole career is being conservative and thinking that I know what's going to happen next year.
Yep.
And so I'm going to wait till this. I'm going to wait till my single biggest business regret in my career is being too cautious and thinking that, oh, I'll do something next year. Guess what? I lost years doing that. So not doing that anymore. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and we hope you got value. And that's it from us today.
See you guys. Thanks
See you
so
later.
much. Well, that is a wrap for today, folks. We hope that this episode shed some light on the complexities of the real estate market and kind of really gave you some actionable insights. Because remember, you navigate the world of property investment, it requires more than just luck. You're going to need strategy, you're going to need knowledge, and of course, you're going to need a little dash of courage. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review on any of the podcast platforms that you listen to and YouTube as well. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Burn Your Boats Wealth, and leave comments, talk to us about things that you want us to talk about or things you disagree with us on. We appreciate all that type of insight. Your support really fuels our fire to bring you even more valuable content. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the support, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Burn Your Boats Wealth podcast with Clark Lunt and David Shaw. We would love to hear from you. Please reach out at contact@burnyourboatswealth.com with comments, questions, and if you have a topic you would like Clark and David to discuss on an upcoming episode. We would very much appreciate it if you took the time to rate and review Burn Your Boats on your favorite podcast listening app, and make sure to follow and share on social media. Content in Burn Your Boats Wealth podcast is for entertainment purposes only and is not legal or financial advice. Please review our legal disclaimer at burnyourboatswealth.com. Thank you and have a great day.